Welcome to another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Our mission is to bring you discussions on a wide array of topics in the coaching world to grow players on and off the court. You can connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and also reach us directly through email at basketballteacherpodcast@gmail.com. Now, here's your host, Coach Mike Hernandez.
Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us on whatever platform you're listening on and wherever you're listening to us from. For today's topic, we're shifting our focus to our players who have aspirations to play beyond high school. While we know that it's only a select few high school players who have that opportunity, we also know that there's many different paths that a player can pursue if they want to be playing after high school. From the well-known D1 programs to D2, D3, NAIA, and of course, our topic today, junior college or JuCo. We're going to be discussing junior college and dispelling some myths and also talking about when JuCo might be right for your player who has aspirations to play beyond high school. And to help discuss this topic with me, I'm very fortunate to be joined by assistant coach at Illinois Central College, Coach Tony Thomason. Coach, how are you today?
Doing fantastic. Fantastic.
Good. And looking forward to getting into this. I know that we're all aware of what JuCo is, kind of on a big level, but I think that there's a lot of things that maybe we're not aware about or don't really know about how a junior college program works. So I'm looking forward to this, and I think it'll be really informative. So let's go ahead, Coach, and let's start with your journey, your basketball journey, your coaching journey, where you've been, where it's taken you, and where you're currently at right now.
I was blessed enough to at least play at a high level. I went to Limestone High School, which is just a high school in Central Illinois here. So kind of coaching back in my home area. I played college ball up at Minnesota State, which is Division II. And then I was able to play overseas in Munich, Germany. That was amazing. And then came back and I did a few odd-end jobs here and there, got a break to get in at the high school level, kind of moved my way up there, became a head coach at another high school, and then eventually got to Illinois Central College with, head coach there, Tony Weisinger, was able to kind of build a relationship with him and get in there. And I love it. It enables me to get kids that not so much lost, but are still trying to find their way. They've been obviously mature at different ages, and they got through that high school kind of era and, still kind of looking to find themselves almost. So I enjoy that part of it. I enjoy the relationships that you build at the JuCo level because it is different. It is different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's a good point that you bring up about how sometimes we think that when a kid leaves us from high school that they have things figured out, they're mature, they're adults now, like they're ready to go on their way, but that's obviously not the case for everybody. They're still 18, a lot of them, when they leave, and a lot of them still are going through a maturation process and a growing process, and it's kind of cool that, especially you said at the JuCo level, that you can really build those relationships, kind of establish that with them. So that's awesome. I want to start with social media and the perception that a lot of high school athletes get from looking at things like Twitter and get from looking at Instagram. Do you think that social media has kind of created a culture where our younger players are only seeing things played at the highest level, like D1 and March Madness and all of that? Or has social media also been a help for you in terms of recruiting efforts and connecting and getting your program out there to more people?
Absolutely. So it's definitely a gift and a curse, just like a lot of things in this world, that we encounter. It's how you use it, and it's what you expose yourself to. So who you're following. I know on my Twitter, I follow a lot of different levels of basketball. I've played at different levels. I follow different levels. I love European basketball. All levels of it. You have the European League, and then you go Pro A and Pro B, and then you got lower leagues than that. And there's some really good basketball at every one of those levels. When I was head coach at the high school there, I always tried to take my teams I watched Illinois Central College games We came to practices. We went to a Division III game. And we go back the next day and we'd have our little get together. I'd say, hey, okay, so do you think you can play at that level? And a lot of them would be like, man, no, I didn't realize, so it's and when you talk about our kids on social media and it's hurting their mindset, I think it's majority parents and it's hurting their mindset. We want to say all the time that kids have changed. No, kids are still kids. Parents changed. Look back to my parents and the other parents that I saw when I was growing up. It's that whole parenting concept has just changed now. And you're seeing the results of it. Let the kids follow whoever they want on social media and let them watch Division I players and in the best in the country play and think that, that's what they got to be, which is great. They can aspire to be that. We all need dreams and goals and things to motivate and push us. But at the end of the day, parents need to step in and give them truth and give them, realization of, hey, there's this there too. You have these options and you're still going to be great and we're still going to love you. And, I think a lot of kids have that mindset too. I know I have 4 kids. My 8-year-old strives to make us proud, and he's not big into sports. And we have to tell him frequently that that's okay. Let's go climb or build something or, and I think parents is the big key in pushing that mindset that it's either Division I or bust, and not just parents. You got trainers and you got, AAU circuit. And there's a lot of pressure on the AAU coaches as well. If they're not pushing kids to high levels of, 4-year institutions, they're going to get a stigma of, not having the better players or not developing players or not being able to push to their market. So again, just like anything, there's a bigger picture and there's a lot of different aspects that affect, how adults treat kids and where they're pushing them.
Mm-hmm. Was that something you noticed when you were coaching at high school with your interactions with parents? Did you find that when you were talking to parents that maybe their dreams for their child or the way that they viewed where their kid was going, that there was some sort of a disconnect? Was that something that you encountered?
So there's definitely a lack of communication, and not so much that they don't talk to them at all. And I'm not saying they ignore them, but a deeper level of communication. For example, I did have one parent, their son, he didn't love the game, and we had this talk. He didn't love the game. He was a great player, great kid. I absolutely loved the kid. And I loved having him on the team, and he gave minutes here and there. But they started to dwindle. He didn't like practicing. But again, I tried to push him and motivate him and, hey, we need you. Your teammates like you. Again, great for the team. He wasn't, his mindset was where it needed to be. And so the parent wanted to have a meeting and discuss. And so we talked about it, and I told them this, and they were shocked. And no, he loves it. He wants to play it in college. No. And looked at the player and I said, hey, you got to tell them what you told me. And he did. And there was some tears from the parent. And later she thanked me and we just talked, and I was like, I wasn't trying to hurt your feelings but this is what he wants. And I'm not trying to push him to something that he didn't want to do. That first year as a head coach, I had kids that Division IIIs were looking at and wanted, and I tried to get them there. They just didn't want to play. And once they told me no, okay, that's fine. I tried to educate them on the work that it's going to take. I had one kid tell me, I'm not going to play college basketball, which he very easily could have. I'm going to play college football because it's easier. Not a diss to college football, because I know football is not easy. Don't get me wrong, but just the way we ran practices and our expectations, that was his reasoning. And I said, okay. So just that communication with parents just not knowing, it's like they're bad people, absolutely not. They just don't know. They think their kid wants something else and they don't.
Yeah. I think that's really common, in that one of the things that a lot of really effective coaches and a lot of the great coaches I've had the opportunity to talk to have really emphasized how important it is to do the best you can to establish the relationship between the coach, the parent, the child, and that hopefully in an ideal world, they're all on the same page and they're all working together. But I think it's a good reminder that we can't assume as coaches that the parents and the athlete are necessarily having those conversations, and then they're even speaking the same language sometime. So,
right. Absolutely.
So let's kind of shift into the type of players that are at your school and in general kind of at the JuCo level. So when we think of a player who's a good fit for the junior college level, and I know that there's academics and I know that there's other things that are involved in this as well, and there's certainly not a one-size-fits-all model, but what are the trends that you've noticed in who's being recruited and who's being looked at in terms of playing at the junior college level?
Obviously, like you said, you have the academics, whether they just don't qualify for the NCAA. You have that. And then, the two biggest things I would say are just, maturity level, right? Or potential when it comes to on the court. They're just not ready. But the biggest thing is kind of when you get to know a kid and you start recruiting them, and you talk, tell me about yourself. Tell me about your family. Tell me about, what you've been through. What do you like? Tell me who you are. You start to get a common thread of there's been some life, not problems, but setbacks or life situations that they've had to go through. Losing a parent your junior year, and you struggle in school with it. Grades dip and you don't end up qualifying. It's not because they are unintelligent. But it's because as a 16, 17-year-old, they just lost a parent. I know if I lost my father right now, I'd struggle with it. And I'm a grown man, So, you see that a lot, that, that would be a reason why they didn't qualify. And so getting them at the JuCo level, they get a chance to kind of really enhance their, ability to deal with life situations like that. Because obviously that's not going to be the last time they have a situation that they're faced with that they don't like or they're uncomfortable with.
Right.
So that's really a big one. We have a lot of talks about kind of reacting to situations. My big thing, especially with kids that we recruit, is, we can't control you. There's a lot of things we can't control, so let's worry about what we can. Teaching them that, I think they get a better opportunity at the JuCo level to kind of hone those skills.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the relationship part definitely seems like it must be really important, because you're going to have to, it seems like as a coach at that level, really kind of invest in the kid in the sense that you understand that there were some setbacks that they may have had when they were in high school, but in a sense you're taking a chance on them. And is that something you have to almost like communicate, that you're willing to take that chance and they have to kind of rise to meet the expectations that you and your program have?
Absolutely. You're taking on majority of not labeling them JuCo players, but kids that go JuCo, you are taking a chance. Some of them are really gifted players, but don't know if they love it, are all in. So let's go JuCo and let's try it out type thing. There's a lot of players that have that mindset. They could win you some ball games. So
Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, all right, I'm gonna take a chance on you. Let's see what we can do, type thing. I would bet a lot of money on the kids that go through those life setbacks and react positively.
Mm-hmm.
I would put a lot of money on, risking on those kids.
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of times they just may need somebody to invest in them and take a chance on them and just give them that opportunity. And I think so often we get really surprised at how great of a job our kids kind of rise to the expectations that we set for them, so long as we just invest in them and just believe in them a little bit and actually give them the confidence to be successful. Be very
Right.
surprised at the results we get out of it.
Don't we all need that?
Yeah.
We lose that. Like it's surprising when you invest somebody or you believe in them or you tell them, hey, you can do it. I believe in you. That simple phrase,
Mm-hmm.
results you get, you're
Mm-hmm.
100% right.
Yeah, absolutely. And so on the court, because you actually talked about how you brought your high school players and you brought them to see D3 and you brought them to see different levels of collegiate basketball. What, in terms of the level of play, might surprise some players who might think like, oh, like, well, I'm not gonna, go like D2 and I'll just go play JuCo. What's kind of the wake up call that some players might need to have in terms of the level of play that's taking place at the junior college level?
So honesty, you got to be honest. I tell the players I'm recruiting, I tell them that I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm not trying to hurt your feelings, but this is where you're at right now.
Mm-hmm.
A different coach might have a different perspective on it, but honesty, especially at that high school level, and being honest with the parents. I've had a lot of parents ask me, where do you think he can play? And I'll be honest with them. His best bet would be to go JuCo, see if he can develop his skills a little more, and then we can see maybe what level he can get to. Or maybe he's got really good height that he just grew quick and he's out there looking like Bambi. There's so many different situations and every kid is unique. Absolutely. And so there's not like, like you said, there's not a one size fits all. There's not a, every kid that's 6'10" has to go JuCo, or, it's, and there's so many kids that go D1 and then go D2 and sit the bench, go D2 and then go NAIA and struggle.
Yeah.
There's really good players at each level. It's just the situation,
Mm-hmm.
the situation. We had 2 years ago, we had probably 3 players that very easily could have played Division I, but academically they didn't qualify. And so they ended up going NAIA, and, as juniors, they walk on and they just dominated. It's just situations. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Because everybody's kind of coming from a different situation and a bunch of different schools and who knows what their high school experience was like that kind of led them there. And yeah, everything is different. And so kind of made me think of an additional question with that. Is there an acclimation period with some players in which they were like really successful at the high school level and then they get to the junior college level and then maybe they're not the one who's scoring 30 points a game and maybe the one who does have to fit into a new role? Is that something that you found success with in having those conversations? Is it really important that you're very transparent with that so that the players do know their role?
So at least the good thing with all college level sports is you get a freshman in, and like you said, they're the man. They come from high school, they're the man, and then they have 10 other the mans, and you just roll a ball out and you say, let's show me what you got. It's a very humbling experience. Football has the gauntlet. To show me what you got. Somebody's going to get put on their butt. And it's a very humbling experience. I know my freshman year at the Division II was very humbling. And I realized you learn your weaknesses. And again, this is where you react, whether you get in the weight room or you got to get stronger, or you got to put more. You didn't think you thought you were a better shooter than what you really were, or you thought you could finish at the rim, which now you can't over 6'8", 6'9", So it's a very humbling experience, but a lot of the time that's roll a ball out, let's see you go to work now.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of do that, and then you'll bring them in and talk to them. Okay, what do you see? What do you think? And you'll be surprised by what kids, realize and kind of humble themselves. And then you can show them that's why you're here. We're going to develop you. You put the work in, we'll get you where you want to go.
Mm-hmm.
So you got that way of reacting, and then you got the way of, man, I'm the man. Give me the ball. You know, it's stuck in them, you know. So, but you know, you don't give up, and you try to stay with them, and you do the best you can. And at the end of the day, you know, it's all on them.
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right about rolling the ball out. It's kind of the great equalizer. Like the ball doesn't
Oh yeah.
lie. So,
Oh yeah.
well, we'll see what happens, and then it'll
Yeah.
be pretty evident really quick as to where you are. So, yeah, I mean, there's no fairer way I can think of than just putting the ball out there and seeing what happens. So, now for coaches, I think that in general, at least here in my area, we do a really good job working with our junior colleges, promoting junior college, and making sure that kids know that it's a viable option, and that it's a maybe the best option for some of our players. But in order for high school coaches to kind of know more about what junior college can offer, what opportunities are there for players who choose to play at the junior college level that may not be present in bigger programs? And how, as high school coaches, can we make sure that we're kind of promoting junior college and emphasizing the positives of it?
So obviously the big thing is playing time. You know, you go to a big school, or you're a walk-on, you know, you may never see the court, or with a 50-point blowout, you know, you might get the last 10 seconds type thing. But I know I ask a lot of kids a simple question: do you want to go to Division I or Division II and just kind of, you know, be a member of the team, or do you want to go somewhere where you can make a big impact and be kind of a major person in that community? And that's kind of the decision they have to make. But with JuCo, you know, playing time, absolutely. There's some Coach Weisinger, our head coach, likes to play a lot of kids, and he plays a lot of freshmen. Obviously, if you know you're not ready at all, then you're not playing. But he plays a lot of kids. He gives a lot of kids chances and opportunities, and you know, that's something that you're not getting at those higher levels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Of course, you can still redshirt at a JuCo. You know, I think kids forget that, or that's downgraded on. You know, is looked down on if you go to a JuCo and then you redshirt. We had a sophomore last year, got hurt, came back, never really was the same. He didn't, you know, respond to it positively. And we tried to get him to redshirt, medical redshirt, come back, we'll get you stronger, we'll get you back to where you were. And he didn't want to. He texted me probably a couple weeks ago saying, "Coach, I wish I would have redshirted." And I felt for the kid. I really did. But, you know, he made that choice, and now he's going to have to live with it. But that's a big one. Redshirt, playing time. You know, kids need to, and again, make that choice of, do they want to go somewhere and play and get better, or do they want to go somewhere and just practice and never play?
Right. Right.
You know, that would drive me nuts. I couldn't do that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. So something also that I've always heard was a really big advantage, and you can kind of speak to the demographics of those at your school, is that junior college tends to be more local, where kids can kind of still be near or around home, and they're not necessarily going far off somewhere that they've never been to before. Is that kind of the demographic to it at your school? Is it a lot of more local players around Illinois in that area?
You know, we would like it to be.
Yeah.
We have some really good players in this area. And kind of the mindset is kids want to say they went somewhere, right? And being from Peoria and staying in Peoria, you didn't go nowhere. So it actually makes recruiting local kids a lot harder. And we do it a lot still. We don't get as much, but with my network and Coach Weisinger's network, our head coach who at the University of Illinois, so he's got a big network. We have, you know, we recruit from all over the nation, really. We get a lot of kids sent our way. You know, we got a couple Michigan kids coming in. We had a Texas kid on the team last year. We got a Wisconsin, you know, shooter on the team last year. So we're able to cast a very wide net and able to get kids from all over the nation, really.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So it's It's good in the sense that then like it should hopefully for some players open up a lot more options if they do feel comfortable kind of going elsewhere, and because there's junior colleges, there's a lot all over the place. And so if those players are more open to that and are more open to the travel, hopefully it can open up some more doors to them. Absolutely. So speaking of kind of like those doors being open, one of the interesting things about junior college especially is that some players use junior college kind of as a springboard to want to continue playing and go elsewhere. Has that been how has that been with kind of balancing when the players come to your program with, hey, I'm in this program, but I'm ready to, move on in a couple years and go elsewhere, versus, after a couple years, like they realize that, this is maybe it in terms of playing? Has that been a difficult conversation and something you've had to balance?
So it's always a difficult conversation, especially you get a kid that loves the game, works his tail off. But it's not in the cards, and he could go NAIA, a small school, and be on a team. We could definitely get him there, because those type of kids, coaches are going to put their name on. Hey, this kid's going to come to your program. He's going to work his tail off. He's going to be a great team player. He just wants to be a part of the program and kind of make a difference. Mm-hmm. And the coaches will take those kids in a heartbeat. Yeah, I got a spot for them, but they might just, say, hey, I just want to finish school and kind of get my life going on. Those are always difficult conversations, because you feel for that kid, but just like anything, all good things come to an end, and some sooner than others. And then you have the ones that come in and they got that mindset of, I'm going to be at a 4-year, which is great. They should have that mindset. But teaching kids to live in the now is a big lesson to teach. Mm-hmm. I try to remind myself of that every day. Let's get through today, and then tomorrow I'll get through tomorrow, one day at a time. So you're here at Illinois Central College now. We got to make the best of it. Yeah. And, in order to go on to that 4-year school, you got to show coaches that you can play at this level. You got to show coaches that you can dominate and kind of do what you want at this level. So being able to do that, and obviously with the team mindset, because, no coach is going to want to hear, yeah, he's a great player, but he just cares about himself.
Yeah.
You want your team, right? Yeah. So they definitely got to adjust to it.
Right.
And then, we film sells, you put up numbers, it sells. But at the end of the day, that coach is going to call us and say, tell me about him. And if that player is somebody that we can't trust or is going to hurt the recruitment of future players that come through ICC, you're going to be honest with that coach. And we tell them all the time, if a coach calls us, we are going to be 100% honest with who you are and how you've conducted yourself here with that coach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that's, that I feel like then that kind of builds into the relationship building, so that you can speak honestly about a player, hopefully really positive things, and know them really well and know what they bring and who they are, not just on the basketball court, but as people as well, academically as well, and just be able to give the most honest assessment about where this player's at and what they've done, and hopefully it's good things.
Right. Absolutely.
So then that also got me thinking then about team building, because building a team and building team chemistry at that level, when you have players who may have different aspirations and maybe, using junior college for different things, what's the process of kind of building a team if you have players who kind of have separate goals and objectives of what they're looking to get out of their junior college experience?
So that's what everybody has a different mindset. That's the unique and kind of different animal with it. But, and that's the different part with going to a 4-year school. Their minds, I'm here, 4 years, this is my whole college career. Like you said earlier, JuCo is, this is kind of a pit stop, and I'm going to be out of here in a year or two and move on. So, we get to do the same things that 4-year schools get to do. We'll have luncheons, we'll have cookouts, we help in the community, we help people carrying their luggage on move-in day. And, so we get to do those same things. It's just a smaller setting. So a lot of our players, which very outgoing guys, get to know a lot of the students, and they get recognized on campus, so not saying they wouldn't in a big, 4-year institution, but just at a smaller institution and being a freshman able to play and wear the jersey, and that makes a difference. And of course it surrounds them with some positivity,
Yeah. Well, I think what that kind of leads to is that they're more visible and they're more active with something beyond just playing basketball, and so that they feel maybe more connected with the student population, and then they're recognized as a player at your school, and probably helps a little bit with the buy-in and kind of make them feel that, that it's important to be where they are right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And with the schooling, right, you're not pressured into what major you want. You're there, you get your general educations out of the way, you bump up your GPA, and then you can move on, and then you kind of know what you want. I know I changed my major like 3 or 4 times.
Mm-hmm.
Who hasn't?
Yeah.
So this gives you that opportunity to kind of, again, learn more about yourself and in a smaller setting, and be able to kind of hone in on what it is that you want to do.
Mm-hmm. And adding on to that, with that smaller setting, what benefit is there for players, or how have your players benefited from being in that smaller setting, just beyond basketball, just being a student at a smaller setting where they may not have necessarily been as successful if they went to a huge 4-year university? What other sort of things off the court have players benefited from by being at a junior college?
I think it's definitely the same, because we don't have a lot of local kids on the team.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely the same as going to a 4-year school. The smaller setting, the bigger setting, kids from out of state, they still they have to get out of that bubble, and they have to grow, and they're still able to do that at a JuCo. Maybe a kid that's not ready for the release into the real world yet. That JuCo is a nice transition spot. It is still the real world, and it does definitely have some real world aspects to it, but it is just a smaller sample size, basically. So socializing, outside the classroom, we still have, as a D2 JuCo, we do have, they're called dorms, but they're basically apartments. Not all JuCos have those. But we have those, so that gives them still that college feel, apartments in the dorm surrounded by other students. So, you can still get the big picture just in a smaller glass type thing.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense in the fact that it kind of bridges the two, and that for some of our players, it would just be completely overwhelming to just have so much available for them at a bigger school, but to have in your particular college those things still present but just at a smaller level may not make it as overwhelming for some players being in that environment.
Absolutely.
They may feel more comfortable being in that
Right.
setting, especially if you have players who maybe come from not necessarily the biggest towns or the biggest areas ever. Like you said, it might be a good transition to kind of get used to a bigger environment.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So let's kind of talk about for the high school coaches here who are looking to kind of build their network, or kind of build their relationships that they have with the junior college coaches in particular. When it comes to your interactions with high school coaches, are there certain trends in terms of like high school coaches that you trust and that you believe in what they say? Are there ways that high school coaches can really form those positive relationships at the junior college level?
So, going back to the recruiting, honesty, obviously. We had a player 2 years ago. Coach told us he was 6'4". He came in, he was about 6'1". We saw film. We didn't get to he was from Georgia, so we didn't get to get him on campus before, just kind of talked to him, and but never really saw him standing height-wise, and we get him on campus, and he's 6'1". So we have not talked to that coach since. I let him know, hey, he's not 6'4", just to let you know. Oh, yeah. So, but honesty's a big one, you know, just like we said, if we're caught lying to a 4-year coach, you know, they're never going to take another one of our players again. So you lose that trust. But just, you know, reach out to coaches. You'd be surprised at how many big-time coaches, if given the opportunity, would love to help a high school coach. I reached out, you know, I sat down and came to practices of Coach Weisinger before I joined the staff as a high school coach, even as a sophomore coach back in the day. I brought my sophomore team to practices and games, and I sat down with Wardle and Bargain out at, you know, over at Bradley. Just emailed him, hey, I'm running this. I'm looking at running this defense. Would you be willing to sit down and talk? And he came in and God, Bargain, he you know, up on the whiteboard, he's drawing up, and I'm thinking, and we sat for probably an hour and a half, and he just, you know, just, what do you want to know? I'll tell you anything, you know. So reach out. You'd be surprised at who would be willing to help you, sit down and talk with you. And it's just building your network. And it's, don't sit down and be like, hey, I got this player, I got this player, I got this player. Just talk basketball, have some questions for them. You know, that's the best thing you could do. Email them. Give them a call the office, you know, hey, leave a voicemail, just anything. Let them know you're interested, and you'd be surprised at who would get back to you and, hey, heard you wanted to talk, let's get together.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
So it's reassuring because, you know, I think sometimes as high school coaches, we think that the collegiate coach is just way up on this pedestal up here and doesn't even have time to look down at the high school coach.
Yep.
So I think it's, but honestly, so many, even in my limited experience of it, a lot of even collegiate coaches, like, they love talking basketball. They love talking about coaching and things like that. And so I've only had positive experiences with that. And so I think that as high school coaches, we kind of have to not think that there's this huge barrier necessarily. And like you said, if you email a coach, either they're gonna, what are they gonna do? Say no, ignore you? Well, okay, you can drive somebody else, right?
Right. Yep.
And I think that it also maybe might help if high school coaches and high school players, they kind of like see what things look like at the junior college level. In a way, it also might have a benefit for your players to kind of see, like, oh, like these high schoolers, like they kind of want to see me, and they're like interested in like the games and what we're doing too. And it kind of maybe helps a little bit with the JuCo player buy-in when they see high school players kind of looking up and seeing what they're doing and kind of looking up to them too.
Absolutely. We get a lot of, you know, like the grade school level, middle school. We reach out to all of them. Come to a practice. Come to a game. You know, come watch whatever you want. We'll let you in and get some popcorn, watch a big game, have some fun, you know. And it's surprising just how many won't. You know, so like you said, when we hear, you know, and I say we, I mean, I've been at all levels, but when coaches hear somebody reach out, they're passionate about the game, I'd love to sit down and talk with you about it. Absolutely. Because there's a lot of coaches that aren't passionate about it, or just doing it because they needed somebody to fill the position, or, you know, so I think that's, you know, people would be surprised I say that, but just like any profession, you know, if you're passionate about it, and if I can talk to you, if you've done the things that I kind of want to do, let's talk. Heck yeah. Mm-hmm. You know? So like you said, what's the worst that can happen? They just won't reply. You know, yeah. So don't be scared. Don't be scared.
Yeah, no, that's great. I'm also curious, just on a personal level, how does a coach from Georgia end up reaching out to somebody at Illinois Central College? Is it just shooting emails to everybody? Like, I guess I'm curious on a national level, how how some of these high schools end up finding your college in particular.
So there's a lot of course, recruiting services.
Yep.
You get a lot of those, but there's mass emailing. There's, of course, social media. You'll see a video, you get some information, you reach out, so just like, now the summer tournaments, right? There's not a whole lot of them right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just changed kind of how you're finding players. And I think more coaches and recruiting services are reaching out because of that. But JuCo coaches, they're at the shootouts on the weekends, just like the 4-year schools are. But it's JuCo coaches got it tough, man. So,
mm-hmm.
A good player, and of course you're going to talk to them. You don't know what their school is like. You don't know if they qualify. So you got a line of, Division II coaches or Division III or Division I, and you're at the end of the line, and then you come up and you tell that player who you with, and they just kind of blow you off. So, but no, it's fun. I love the recruiting aspect of it. It's competitive.
Yeah.
It's probably the most competitive thing as a coach. When you're talking games, that's player versus player. You try to outcoach the other coach, you're going to lose the game.
Mm-hmm.
You do your stuff during practice, you set up your game plan, and then the players got to execute it. So, but the recruiting is competitive. You lose a player to another JuCo, it kind of rubs you the wrong way. So I love it. It's fun. And I think the staff that Coach Weisinger has developed also kind of makes that a point. Let's go out and get the best players that we can possibly get. So we're going to shoot our shot. We might miss sometimes, but we're going to keep going.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It is competitive. It is. You're coaching against, other coaches and trying to sell yourself, sell your school the best way that you can, as others are. And, it's, like I said, I can imagine it's really competitive, but if you love competition, you like competing in that way, then probably is a lot of fun too at the same time, especially when you do get that player.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right. Oh, yeah. So that leads me to thinking then about recruiting and the difference between a coach who is really trying to get your program to look at a player versus the player advocating for themselves and reaching out to you. How does that sort of work with a coach who maybe really wants you to look at a player versus your desire to have the player speak for themselves and sell themselves to you?
For me, we get, just like any level, you get a ton of emails, you get a ton of players, coaches sending you players and players sending their own video out. You'd be surprised at how many high school level coaches don't send anything out, don't do anything. So the players do it. And I'm not going to, discourage the players from doing that, or I'm not going to, bash them for doing that. So we look at everything. We really do. We split it up. We got a great staff that does that. We look at everything. And if it's a player that sent us the film, then, we definitely ask for the coach's information and reach out to that coach before we even talk to the player. Mm-hmm. So the coach definitely will talk to us then and let us know about that player. But then, and I mean, personally, I kind of like that. I think the player at least loves the game and has a passion for it, that they're willing to put themselves out here, and face rejection. So I like it. I absolutely like it. And it doesn't make them better than the player that the coach, presented either. But I don't think there's definitely not a negative stigma to a player reaching out and saying, hey, this is what I got, you know?
Yeah, I think that it's great if players can advocate for themselves and speak for themselves and to kind of put themselves in the most positive light possible. And it really would show that, okay, this player is really serious about it because they're the ones reaching out and it means that much to them. And so there's that level of buy-in there. And so you mentioned how you'll get video from players. So what is an effective video like? If a player wants to send you something, what are the do's and don'ts of effective video for you and your staff to look at? Because I'm sure you get everything.
Yeah, every coach is different. I'll say that. But don't show film of you making a free throw. No shooting free throws in your highlight film. Please don't make every clip a breakaway dunk. And don't make it 17 minutes long with blaring music on it. It's some of them are kind of funny, but just my big thing, and a lot of coaches are students of the game. If there's something you do really well, make sure you show that. If it's shooting off the dribble, if it's footwork in the low post, show that. I'll watch a film and then I'll call the player and I'll ask them, what are your strengths? What do you do really well? And they'll tell me, and I'll be like, I didn't see that at all in your video, your highlight tape. And then I'll be like, what's your weakness? What's something you really need to improve on? And they'll tell me, and I'll be like, well, I didn't see you shoot one layup with a left hand. I go, do you use your left? Oh yeah, I need to use, So when we watch film, players, we watch the film. So the shorter the better, and highlight obviously show what you do well. Shooting free throws, it doesn't need to be on there. And 7 breakaway dunks doesn't need to be on there. Mm-hmm. 7 half court, break down a defender, get to the lane and throw it down on somebody. Sure, send 7 of those. That's fine. So obviously, God, there's so many good players now.
Yeah.
So many. And they all can do pretty much, the basics, especially players that are going on to the next level. So being able to differentiate yourself from other players is a big key. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So showing in that highlight, things that are unique, I think definitely. And then once you get to talk to that coach, being able to verbally express yourself and who you are, I think that's probably the biggest thing, besides the film.
Yeah, and I think that it would be really beneficial then if players have that relationship with their coach to say like, hey, like here's some film that I think I would want to send, and have the coach look at it too and kind of go through that process of like, okay, like let's include this, like do we need this, like, because hopefully your coach would be a really good advocate of emphasizing what the strengths are and being able to put those out there on film. So right. Yeah, I would definitely recommend that would happen. And so for a player who, like if a player, I'm just thinking of an example, if they're like a really good like lockdown defender, if that's something that they hang their hat on, is that something that you would want them to kind of be able to show on film, even if it isn't necessarily like steals or blocks like that, but just locking up a defender? Or do you see that? Is that something you would like to see?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But again, every coach is different. We love defense. We love players that can play defense, and especially you have that one lockdown guy that you put on the best player and just go to work. Don't fall over on offense and shut this guy down on defense. That's all you got to do. Mm-hmm. Yeah, every coach loves that player. Mm-hmm. So absolutely, you showing that at least means you take pride in that defensive end, which seems to be becoming very rare. Mm-hmm. This age of basketball.
Yeah. So then adding on to that, as you're kind of looking at that film and you're kind of like looking at them play defense, looking at them play offense, does then that require, as you're kind of looking at that film, for you to kind of go further into like what level of competition is this player playing against? Like who are they playing against? Is that something you also like take a lot into consideration, because there's a wide range of AAU, there's a wide range of high schools and different levels of ability being played there?
That's true. And it's probably going to be majority of the time hard to distinguish that on a level that's going to really adjust how you view that player. Mm-hmm. But obviously, if they show that they can shoot, and then you talk to the coach and you get stats and he's shooting 20% from 3 on the season, then, okay, you showed me the 5 threes you made all season type thing. So I don't care if he's playing against really hard competition or not. If you can shoot, you can shoot. If you're shooting against bad competition and every shot's wide open, and you shoot 70% from three, then you can shoot, So it definitely does have a factor, though. I can't say it doesn't.
Yeah.
Then you look at, probably points you're putting up or what kind of system you played in. You do ask the coach those questions, right? Is it, if it's ISO ball, then he should be scoring 30 a game, if he had 50 shots a game, so you definitely look at all those, and every kid again is unique and every situation is unique, and how they were coached at the high school level. Definitely you have to think about that, moving forward. Now, is this player going to be able to adjust and play our way and, still be able to score at that level, which for players, that's a question mark in itself. Can they do those same things at the next level?
Yeah.
If they were playing against really good competition at the high school level, it's a different game. The shot clock is a different game. In some states, high school is still playing quarters and not halves, so that's a different game.
Yeah, right.
So the physicality of it, different game. So it's there's always a question mark. But at the end of the day, and I tell kids this all the time, I go, you got a little dog in you? I go, you come play, you got to have some dog. You got to be ready to fight. It's not going to be as easy as it was in high school. You might have worked really hard in high school. You're going to have to continue to work really hard in JuCo. Nothing's going to change with that. So I think finding those kids that if they love the game, they're going to do what it takes to succeed.
Well, it speaks to a great point is that there's such a huge jump, because like you said, like once they get to junior college, they're going to be playing teams against everybody who was the man at their high school, and that's a huge jump in competition. And not only that, but those players are, after high school, as they enter that first season of junior college, they're working on their game a lot, and they're working on their bodies and things like that, so they're going to be even better. And so I think that's a really important question to kind of ask, even as high school coaches, is, are you understanding the mental aspect of like how much harder you're going to have to work because of the level of competition you're rising to? Right.
Yeah. And, it's hard to grade or judge how a kid's going to deal with failure. That's a risk every coach takes at every level.
Yeah.
There's going to be up and downs, and you are going to fail, especially a freshman coming into any situation. You're going to fail. How are you going to react to it? Are you going to stay on board? Are you going to stay committed? Or are you going to jump off the train? What are you going to do? So that's always a juggling effect that every coach at every institution, has to deal with, not just JuCo or just 4-year.
No, you're absolutely right in that there is, in a sense, it's like if that player who was great and awesome and doing really well in high school, no matter what level that they transition to, there is a part of starting over because they're going to be a freshman again. And there's a whole adjustment that has to be made. And I think mental toughness it's one of those things that it could be a little bit tough to capture in the moment until they face that adversity. But, for us as high school coaches to make sure that some of our best players who might have those aspirations understand that there's going to be some barriers and they're going to need to be mentally tough if they feel like playing at that next level.
Right.
And so one other quick question I had, again, knowing that every coach is different, so I know you're just speaking kind of in your to your personal experience in terms of film and things that you look at. I've heard a lot of discussion about whether or not players should include off the court things that they have, whether they're involved in things, whether their academics are really good. Are those things, at least in your experience and the coaches that you've talked to, are important in kind of judging maybe more of who the person is in terms of their character and in their involvement?
Definitely. If obviously grades and GPA is a big one. If we get an email and there's nothing like that, our first response is, what are your grades? What's your GPA? Academics, where are those at? And then they'll respond, it's either good or it's not good. And then we'll ask why. Why is it good? What do you do? And I take pride in it, or I study a lot, or I'm just really smart, or, or why is it bad? Well, I had this situation happen, or, I should have studied more. Finding out, kind of just talking to them, again, communication. But no, definitely we absolutely look at those. Off the court stuff, if you're involved in stuff, be proud of it. Not every kid is. Not every adult is. Share that information. Let us know a little bit about you. If you're not in the student council, that's okay too. It's not like I don't know. It's not like a college, resume here where you got to be involved in student council and be the president and be in Kiwani Club or
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. It's different, but absolutely, you share those things. That's great. That just gives us something to talk to you about. To know you a little better, and that's in the recruiting aspect. That's the whole kind of the big picture there. Just getting to know them. Is this person going to be able to be around me for X amount of years, and both of us not go crazy? So
yeah. I think that it just makes sense that players who are looking to play at any level beyond high school should do whatever they can to put themselves in the best light as possible. And basketball is just one. Obviously, it's a huge component because that's what they're looking to do. But if there is more that makes that player stand out or unique and puts them in a positive light, it seems like it would make sense to me to include that sort of information, include it there.
Absolutely.
Great. Well, this has been really informative, and this has been really insightful, especially for coaches who may not know a lot about junior college. So this has been really good. So to wrap up, Coach, I want to have you dive into a coaching moment of yours that you think others listening would be able to learn from.
Oh man, I know I've learned from a lot.
Yeah.
Probably the biggest thing through sophomore to head coach to assistant, at the JuCo here, is being able to let go of some control, being able to delegate. Otherwise, the kids are going to get sick and tired of hearing from you, and your family or wife is going to get sick and tired of not hearing from you. So I know when obviously your name's on it, your name's on the check type situation. So you want to make sure it's done your way, the right way. And so it's hard. So finding people you can trust and delegating, I know it's not a one moment thing, but it's definitely a big thing that I've learned and tried to incorporate, every day moving forward.
Yeah. We talked about this earlier too, that if you can let go and if you can delegate and if you put more trust in others, you'll be amazed at how much they'll rise to those expectations if you just give them the opportunity. And if you do that,
right,
it'll take some off of your shoulders too. And so everybody kind of benefits that way. And so
absolutely.
it also reminds me that if we want our players to be leaders and we want them to have those leadership qualities, well, we kind of have to give them the opportunity to do that by kind of letting go a little bit ourselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's easier said than done. That's for sure.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. You have to kind of understand there's going to be some mistakes on the way, but that's part of the growing process. Is mistakes are going to happen, and it's not going to always be easy, but it's for the best. Absolutely. So to wrap up, Coach, I give every guest what I call a 60-second soapbox, where they can get out their final thought, reemphasize something, get out an idea, like a closing message that you want to make sure that coaches are hearing. So go ahead, Coach. Floor is yours.
Okay. Awesome. You actually brought it up earlier, talking about mental toughness. I think that's a huge aspect that's affecting not only the game of basketball, but individuals as a whole throughout this entire country. The things, letting go of what you can't control, and 100% focusing on what you can control in your life, how you treat others, how you react and respond to negative, say, situations. I think that's something that we need to put a lot of emphasis on, teaching our children that mental toughness, that mental aspect of everyday life. Mm-hmm. I've done a lot of research on the past probably 4 or 5 years on mental capacity, kind of your mind, self-talk, and the effects that has not only on your brain and the structures inside your brain, but your body. And so I preach on this a lot to my players about mental toughness and about the effects that your thoughts have on your everyday life. And some kids have really bought into it, and it's been amazing, the results that those kids have had. And not so much on the court, but off the court, which I'm 100% more proud of what they do off the court and the kind of young men and grown men that they become. When they reach back out and tell me what they're doing, and so that's more than anything. But that's my number one thing. It's kind of surpassed coaching. Me and my wife use it every day in our marriage. I'm preaching that to my 8 and 7-year-old, although they have zero idea what I'm talking about right now. But I'm trying to drill it in their minds that, no matter what, you can still be a really good person because that's what you can control every day. Yeah. And I know that's easier said than done. I know it's really easy to be negative. We all have those thoughts, but reacting to them, limiting those, and stopping them when they start and changing that mindset will have a lasting effect on your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's such a great point in helping to grow our players as people and grow them mentally and emotionally into young men or young women, and that for us to be those role models to help them on that journey, we ourselves have to make sure that we're on that journey and we're doing our best to be mindful and reflecting and being positive communicators. And that way we can just grow our players so much beyond just basketball into the people that we want them to become. So yeah,
absolutely.
Great idea. Great thought. Coach, I want to thank you for spending some time joining us, talking about JuCo and so much more, and the aspirations that I know a lot of our players have, and a little bit about their pathway to get there. So Coach Thomason, I want to thank you again for joining us, and good luck this season. Hopefully you have some games to play going forward.
Hopefully. Absolutely. I appreciate it. Thanks for doing what you do. You're doing a great job, and continue to share some knowledge. I love it.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And I hope all of you listening have enjoyed all of the topics that we brought you and helped you grow as coaches as well. So thank you guys. This was another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. We'll see you guys next time.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Make sure to connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, or reach us directly through email at basketballteacherpodcast@gmail.com. Take care, be safe, and we'll see you next time.